Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jordan Sather, and here today I have the amazing William Tompkins.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for coming. So, when did you first decide to come forward with all of your information?
Uh, that was actually a long time ago, and uh, I actually did not feel that I was interested in wanting to express some of this because much that I had done in the Navy was not it was not a normal situation. And I did make notes about different meetings, and I kept some of the documents that I did that 4 years that I was in the Navy. But I was not interested in releasing this information. Uh, it took quite a long time, and actually, when I got later on with Bob Wood, he and I sort of got together. He was at Douglas, and I had been at Douglas, and it was just sort of felt really the right thing to do. And so we decided to put together this book, which was selected by extraterrestrials. And we found that there was more information than we could get in the one book. So actually, we were even planning on 3 books.
Wow.
And I think that the second book is going to be finished here probably in about 3 months.
Fantastic. That's awesome. What was your feeling when you first found out that you and Dr. Wood were working at the same company together, Douglas Aerospace?
That was surprising. A friend of ours told me when I talked to him on some of the subject, and he suggested that I call Bob Wood, and this was years later. And he gave me Bob's phone number, and I called him, and we talked. And it was interesting that we had both worked at the same company. We knew all of the same top people, and yet we hadn't met. I was there 12 and a half years. Actually, Bob was there, I think, 30 years. And we hadn't met, but we had been actually working on the same program. It's very interesting to me.
Do you know how many people were working on that program at all?
We actually had a secret think tank inside of Douglas. And I had, before that, I had spent 4 years in the Navy and working on extraterrestrial programs. And I had worked at Northrop for 2.5 years after I got out of the Navy. I did work at North American for a few months. I worked at Lockheed, and of course, this is interesting. I have these packages which I brought to all these different companies, which were really contracts. And now I get, this is, you asked me how I got to see Bob, really. I get flashes. I get flashes about information. This is a little different than remote viewing. My flash will be like I will see 4 or 5 planets in my mind. Then I'll see one planet. Then I'll see a location on that planet, and then I go there. Okay? So it's a little bit like remote viewing. I got one of those flashes when I was working at Lockheed over in Burbank. And that was that something very, very important was going on over in Santa Monica in Douglas. And so I quit Lockheed. I used my models to get me into the door again. And so they hired me into the wind tunnel group. And different than getting into the other companies using the models, the vice president of the company knew about my models. So actually, I put 40 of the models in a window of a department store in Santa Monica. And of course, Douglas gets to put all their advertising about Douglas airplanes and everything up on the background. It was sort of fun. So him knowing about my models, he knew about my background in that 4 years in the Navy. So he had me hired out of the wind tunnel into engineering. And I actually didn't do much in engineering. I was introduced to the fellow who was in charge of electronics and communication, a fellow by the name of Pete Dion, and prince of a guy. So he then told me a little bit about what he wanted me to do in the company, and it turns out that Douglas had a secret think tank inside of Douglas that I don't think Bob Wood even knew was there, okay? And so Pete didn't have a card to get into it, but he buzzed into it to the receptionist inside. He told her who we wanted to bring in, and she comes and opens the door and takes me in, and Pete doesn't go in. He's not authorized to go into this secret think tank. So I spent 12 and a half years at Douglas. At least 50% of it was in the tank, and then later on I became engineering section chief of the Apollo program. Actually, my position was for all types of test equipment for our new contract, which was for the Apollo upper stage, which was the S4B stage of Apollo. Now, a lot wasn't understood and hasn't even been brought out yet, but Douglas, inside the secret think tank, we had been working on programs, not just to do the Apollo program. That was old stuff. We had been working on missions to go out in space and build naval base and research facilities on every planet in the solar system or the moon. Now this is way, way before NASA even existed. We were doing these secret studies ourselves, not by the Navy, but for the Navy. This is way before Space Navy even started. And we were tremendously interested in what was taking place out in the galaxy. I was able to utilize a great deal of the information that I spent in the Navy, where I was staffed to Admiral Ricobata. Now, do you want me to explain a little of that?
Go for it, absolutely.
All right. This is very strange. There was a group of people who were studying extraterrestrial, and this is kind of, I got to figure out the best way to get into this. A single Navy operative went into Germany. This is like 1939. He didn't believe this, but there was very strange organizations and different research groups all over, not just Germany, but in the occupied countries too. And strangely enough, Germany was putting in production fantastic vehicles that had literally, they didn't have wings on these aircraft. They didn't have empennage or tails. They had landing gears. Some of them were triangular shaped, some were rectangular shaped, some were round shaped like a saucer. All these different vehicles were Draco Navy vehicles that the Draco reptilian civilization people had come to the planet. They had selected Germany as being their support organization on the planet. So what happened was this spy was inside of German secret laboratories. He spoke brilliant German. He knew all the dialects. He was a German family living in the United States, an American, but he's in Germany. And unlike many spies, he knew much about Germany. He knew where the facilities were. And so he, being a spy for the Navy, found out all of these fantastic situations that were going on inside of Germany. And this is an important point. Instead of him going to his boss, coming back to the United States, he went directly to the Secretary of the Navy, Forrestal. So he explained to Forrestal all this fantastic thing that was happening all over Germany or in the war. And Forrestal seemed to believe this spy. So Forrestal then structured an organization of 24 of the top Navy spies. And they were going to go into all of the areas in Germany and find out what is really going on. Okay? Now, this is particularly interesting. Forrestal gets tapped on the shoulder. He gets told, don't select a Navy officer to head up these operatives. What? He's told to select somebody who had never been in Annapolis. Now, almost every Navy officer, whether they're a one-star or lieutenant commander, they've all been through Annapolis to learn how to be a Navy officer.
So why was he selected?
So, it turns out Forrestal is told that every book in the libraries, every book in the colleges, every book in the universities, every book on this planet is misinformation. It's misinformation. So, which is initiated by the Draco reptilians as far back as 6,000 years ago. All over this planet, books are not telling the truth. Whether it's medical, whether it's interplanetary, whether it's science, every person, every PhD on the planet has been given misinformation the 4 or 5 years that he's in the university. So, the Secretary of the Navy selects Ricobata. He's not even an American. He comes over here with his family. He goes to school here. He goes to the second year in high school. He leaves school. He joins the Navy as a third-class seaman, works his way up in the Navy. Now he's a commander, okay? That commander is selected by the Secretary of the Navy to head up all of these operatives to go back into Germany and find out what's going on. Because that individual had never had misinformation given to him about every technical field on the planet. This may sound like insanity. This is what happened. So Rick Abada then transfers from a command facility back east to North Island Naval Air Station. All of a sudden, he's a captain. He doesn't go there. The first place he goes to is 4 aircraft companies, 1 research facility and 1 medical advanced research facility, Scripps. He goes to Caltech, he goes to Douglas, he goes to Lockheed, he goes to North American, he goes to Northrop. He tells every top technical personnel in those organizations they're going to receive a package from the Navy. This package is going to be a contract. This is not a competitive bid contract between different organizations. This is a specific contract to, say, Lockheed in Burbank. Okay. Now, we talked about Rick Abada. We have to talk a little bit about Bill Tompkins. Okay? He's just a dumb kid in Hollywood. He's in Gardner grade school in 1935. He's in trouble with the teacher because he's always doing the wrong thing. So she makes him sit in the front seat in the class. Okay? I hear a roar. I'm in class. It gets real loud. This is a class that's only 4 blocks from Hollywood Boulevard. I hear this roar. Gets to me. I stand up. I look at the teacher. She gives me a dirty look, and I run out of the class. I run down the hallway. I go out the front door, and here is this massive spaceship coming up from Santa Monica over Hollywood. Well, it's really not a spaceship, okay? It's the USS Macon dirigible, okay? This dirigible is flying in one of the Santa Ana weather conditions. In that particular area, there's a group of mountains which makes Hollywood. Behind that is the desert. We get Santa Ana winds which come from the desert towards the ocean. Now the dirigible's coming in from Santa Monica. So he's in a heavy headwind. Flying next to him are 2 biplanes. That means 2 wings, okay? They're flying next to him. You can see as he's coming over, they're hardly moving. A great big structure comes out of the center of this big dirigible. One of the biplanes flies over and hooks on this crane, which carries him up inside. We can't see this, but took him forward and sat him down in an enormous hangar inside this enormous dirigible. Comes back down again. The other plane comes over, hooks on, he goes up, and he goes inside. The Navy was demonstrating their new dirigible and the capabilities of being an aircraft carrier that's a spacecraft carrier. Wow, okay? Now we have hangar decks in aircraft carriers, now we got hangar decks in dirigibles. This was in 1935. Okay, later on, all kinds of things happen. I make a whole group of U.S. model ships of U.S. Navy ships. And actually, over time, I actually built 300, okay? Very scaled models. And I just want to spend a minute on how some of those got built.
Absolutely.
We're living in Hollywood, and so my dad takes us down to Long Beach. And the Navy has these very large, you'd say they're lifeboats, but they're powered launches, which takes a large number of the sailors back to port or back onto the ships. So now at that time, this is like 1940, the Navy is tremendously concerned about the Japanese buildup in the Pacific. So they get a whole bunch of rocks. They build a massive breakwater in front of Long Beach. Now we have an enormous Navy harbor. So we bring the ships down from up at Seattle, we bring them down from San Francisco, they bring them up from San Diego, and now the battle groups can form, communicate together, and go out on a mission. Even more worried about what's happening in the Eastern Pacific, the Navy takes most of the Atlantic Fleet down through the Panama Canal and bring them up past Mexico and put them in this new harbor.
So you have a huge fleet right there in that harbor.
Okay, so now if you stand on the beach at Long Beach, you've got massive numbers of ships you can look at. All right, so my dad takes us down to Long Beach to get on these launches and go aboard these ships. Now you can't use a camera, but I can have a little pad to get my details to put on my ship models. Okay? You're saying this got nothing to do with what Bob Wood is going to talk about, okay? But this is how I got into this thing. So the launch gets us out to, of course, what I want, an aircraft carrier. Because there's a photograph in some of the released newspaper articles of me with one of my 6 or 8 ships, and then my big carrier, the Lexington, which is now the largest carrier on the planet. Just like the Macon was the largest dirigible on the planet. Okay? All right. So I get on board. My dad, my brother, and I get on board, and we go up, climb up to a door that's in the side, not to the deck, but a door halfway up in this enormous ship, largest carrier on the planet. Now we're in this enormous area where they park all the airplanes. Okay, now we go to more stairways up. The Navy calls them ladders. Okay, so we take the ladder up to the flight deck. Okay, I need to know what Navy radars look like. I knew that some of them were round and some of them were rectangular. So I walk out onto the flight deck, I look up at the bridge, and here's a great big rectangle up on top of the mast. So I find the shadow. I walk the length of it, across it, the length again, and back to the start. And I make a note on that. Now, while the rest of them are looking around the ship, I walk up to the bow, because up there are steam catapults. Well, what do you need catapults for? All right, when you're in a battle condition, you fill up that flight deck with every plane you've got. In this particular case, 89 airplanes can go on the Lexington, but there's no deck left. We're right up to the front. So the Navy builds these secret steam catapults. Billy Tompkins goes up to the bow, he gets the width of them, he finds out how close they are, how far they're back from the front part of the bridge, and he marks all this down. Now, I could walk the whole flight deck to the back because there's more secret stuff back there. When you're in a pilot coming in to land on an aircraft carrier, you pull a lever. This lever drops a long bar that's hanging now behind you with a hook on it. On the aft part of the flight deck are cables. 6 cables, 4 cables, whatever. They're all the way across the flight deck. So your hook grabs one of those and stops you, so you don't go crashing into all the airplanes that are up front. Okay? All right, now, this is secret. So I walk to the stern of the flight deck and I walk the number of steps it takes me to get to the first cable. Then I walk to the next cable and I mark that down. Is there 4 cables? Is there 6 cables? Is there 8 cables? No, there were 6 cables. So I marked that down. Now I know from the back of the flight deck where I put these cables on my model. But it's secret. So on my way home, driving home, I'm making perspective catches. I've already got 3 views of the drawing of the ship. So I know what the size of this is. I know how to make these and put them on my carrier. One very interesting part. I have hundreds of photographs. Hundreds of documents, even historical, about the Navy. Instead of playing ball with the kids after school, I go to the library and I look up everything that I can come up with about different ships. So now I have 11 photographs of the Lexington or the Saratoga aircraft carrier, okay? When I first got up to the flight deck, I'm looking for the turrets. A turret is essentially a movable area on the top of the ship which has big cannons sticking out of it. So now my photographs show 2 of these big turrets in front of the bridge and 2 of them behind the bridge. But when I walk up there, they're gone. My photographs, which are recent photographs of these carriers, have the turrets. I just learned something else secret. They threw the turrets off of all of the aircraft carriers and said, let the Navy cruisers handle that part of the mission. We need more space on the flight deck and we need 20 millimeter, 40 millimeter, and 5-inch cannons. Now we got them all over this thing.
So you had to go change all your models.
I gotta go change them. Okay, now later on, a lot of articles come out, and I get a photograph of me with the Admiral of Pacific Fleet down in San Diego. He's looking at all the models. Now, he sees the radar too. He looks at and there's the arresting cables. And oh my God, he's got the steam catapults on the models.
All the secret
You know
stuff.
what he does? He makes me take all of those off. Now, I did similar thing for battleships, cruisers, okay? Secret stuff, take it all off. He confiscates the whole collection. He takes them over to the Naval Training Station to use them in training. Okay, I'll back off. Okay, so that then ricochets off the walls, and the Navy, well, we put the models in the window of the Broadway department store on Hollywood Boulevard. 2 Navy officers see the models. They see the secret stuff on the cruisers, the battleships, the aircraft carriers. This is secret. They go immediately to Naval Intelligence in San Pedro. 2 of those guys come out to my dad's office over on Wilshire Boulevard. They don't arrest him. They detain him for 2 days and 2 nights. Then they come out to our little apartment. I got stacks. I share my bedroom with my brother, but I have stacks of paper all the way around the 2 bedrooms, underneath the table and on the table. They look at this, and They don't arrest us. 3 weeks later, they come to me in now Hollywood High School, first year, partway through, and they very heavily get me to join the Navy. So I go through boot camp in San Diego. My orders were different than anybody else that graduated from that training center. Most of the fellows go to schools, other fellows go to sea. My orders said to report to Admiral Ricabata, North Island Naval Air Station. Wow. Okay. I'm in the Navy there, and I'm going to skip a lot of this stuff, but essentially, I am an individual that has to review the information that the operatives come back with. Now, if you were to go to San Diego and look over at North Island, you're going to see a tall building like this. There's a small office in the top of that building, which is a secret office for the Admiral. This is where the operatives come to. So the Admiral's aide comes to my barracks, taps me on the shoulder, and he only says one word: he's here. We drive over to that building, we get up to the top, we go into this conference room, a small room. Admiral Ricabata sits here, I sit here, and one of 3 other bosses that I have are all captains. So now I have 3 captains as bosses, and now a 2-star admiral. He just got another raise. Wow. He just came back from Lockheed. He just came back from Scripps Institute. He just came back from all the aircraft companies. Wow. Now he's got these operatives coming in. So the operative sits on the other side of the table. He discloses to us these fantastic things that Germany is doing that make no sense. Now I have 8 girls and 3 PhDs as a group. We put together a package from what the operative brings back. Some of it is photographs. Once in a while it's a manual, hardly any manual. A couple of the manuals were not even in English, German, or any other language. They were extraterrestrial hieroglyphics. Wow.
What did you think of all these manuals when you first started seeing them?
I don't believe it, okay? And so we put together these packages. I put the package, which is now a contract, to Lockheed, or to Douglas, or to Scripps Medical, okay? This contract is not a competitive bid contract. This is a contract to Lockheed to do this, to take this information, find out what in the world it is, how it could work, what the operation could be, to what's the purpose of this information. So now, for 4 years, I fly this information to every top organization, medical, astronomical, scientific, research companies, universities, every place, on a secret basis where nobody knows what they're investigating.
How long did it take you to begin believing the information that you were...
I will tell you, I believe the second operative that came in, this fellow admitted that this was insane, what was happening. You have to try to visualize this yourself, because here you are now over there as a naval intelligence officer, a spy. You see all of this stuff. You hear it. You understand what the Germans are doing. They didn't just get documents from the extraterrestrials. They got brand spanking new space vehicles. Here's one. Here's another one. Here's. They brought these. They take you inside. They show you how to drive it. This is totally unreal that this happened like in 1942 on this planet. Extraterrestrial come from who knows where out in the galaxy. Germany gets to be the country that these Draco reptilians pick out to do two types of missions. One, to remove all of the people that Hitler didn't want in his country, and every one of them around the planet. Two, to take every man, woman, and child on this planet and put them in slave factories, men, women, and children, to build and construct all these different types of Draco Navy space battle group ships. Wow, this is insane. Okay, so you asked, how did you first believe this? Actually, the second guy convinced us. Now, we don't say we understand it. So, but now I become, well, there's a title, even today in the Navy. He's disseminator of advanced aircraft and research, okay? That was Billy Tompkins. Now, that the Admiral has presented to all of these organizations like 6 weeks earlier. And remember, some of the information is in hieroglyphics that we don't understand. And if it's Lockheed, they don't understand it either. So if you could visualize that 4.5 years later, Lockheed forms a skunk works. Okay? Now, one of the purposes of these people getting together today is think tanks. So what happened, I did over 1,000 missions to different organisms, many, sometimes 6 and 8 times with new information. If you took it to Lockheed, I actually gave Lockheed 3 different packages. Some of it altered what the first one was because we didn't get enough of it. So this is to help them to design and build a spaceship or a propulsion system or a communication. Even the communication systems are totally unreal because it's all dealing with mind control.
And what was the reaction of these scientists when you gave them the seemingly outlandish information?
Real good question, because there was two feelings. One, I don't believe you, okay? But there was another feeling that was, I would say, unanimous. They realized they were in like the aircraft companies. They designed airplanes for the Navy and even commercial airplanes. They knew that here was something that's out of space that they then could get involved in designing and building. So these fellas, instead of resisting everything that I'm trying to tell them, they were tremendously enthusiastic about the whole concept. Everybody wanted to know more. Everybody wanted to know everything. And so, essentially...
Sorry, just a minute. We just wait for the door to close.
What you just said here is you had 1,000 of these packages delivered to every top university, every medical university, and of course, mind control and extended life. Whoops, what did you say there? Yes, the operatives are talking about the Germans getting an ability to live much longer from the Draco reptilians. What are you saying?
It's amazing.
It's the whole thing. is staggering, okay? I'm not exaggerating, I'm only saying this really happened. And so think tanks this becomes the head of what would have been advanced design in any of these fields. They become think tanks all over the country. Later on, and I have to say this, okay? My dad was a 33 level Freemason. He did something wrong and they didn't shoot him, but they did make my brother not too smart. Okay, so before I actually got in the Navy, my dad wrote a letter to the Admiral, who's Commander of Pacific Fleet, that I would never go to sea, I'd never be in combat, and that when the war stopped, that I was to be immediately discharged. Okay? All right. So my dad, having not gotten along with some of the other people in the Freemasons, he can't get a job. So he does selling. All right? So my brother and I both were in the Navy. He didn't get involved in any of this. But now we moved to Pasadena, and I have to go to work for my dad in where the company's called Real Silk Hosiery Mill, okay? So I have to sell women's socks door to door in Pasadena. Now, you know what I've been doing for the last 4 years, okay?
Quite a jump.
All right, this is hard to do. Then my dad gets fired from that company, so he gets another job for John's Manville Rock Wool to door sell people to put insulation in the wall and insulation in the ceiling. I had to go sell that door to door, okay? That didn't hold too good. So my brother stayed with my dad and I quit. And I used my models to get me a job in Northrop. I worked for Northrop for 2.5 years. I went in again in the wind tunnel department because I built the models and they have models in the wind tunnel department, okay? Then somebody found out what I did in the Navy, security-wise, getting a security clearance. So they put me in a secret laboratory which is designing not flying wings like Northrop does, okay? These are just a fuselage with no wings and no tail. Half airplane, half spaceships. This is what Northrop is designing. Wow. All right, I told you about the flashes that I get, okay? I got another flash and said something is going on in Santa Monica inside a great big Douglas aircraft company. So I quit Lockheed, I take my models and I get a job again in the wind tunnel department. I get in there. It was different this time. Wow. The vice president of the company, Douglas Sr.'s vice president, knew about my models. So he confiscates all the models, makes me put them in a great big window in Santa Monica, and he gets all this Douglas advertising on me.
Did you ever get any of these models back?
Oh yeah, I got them back.
Got it.
But, so he knew about my background too, so he takes me out of the wind tunnel and he puts me in engineering. And there's a fellow by the name of Pete Dion, who's section chief in engineering of communications. So I don't go to work for him, he just interviews me, okay? So he tells me there's some things that are going on that nobody knows. And I'm transferring into a different location. I don't know what they do, but I know there's something going on over here. So he takes me down through kind of a strange thing. You come out of engineering you go down through a hall that turns to a hall that turns to another hall, which is accessible for an airplane to land on the runway, and the animals can come in the back door. Okay? All right. So there's this credit card thing that you put into this, and that'll get the door open. I don't have those, but a telephone call had gone into somebody inside. So at a specific time, the door opens. Now, Pete Dion doesn't go in. He can't even see in. So now I go in this thing to a quite large reception area. A reception area that you would actually have if you're bringing an admiral to investigate his contract of what's being built, okay? So this door, which you go all through, they can come in from the airport and do this. So the lady is very nice. She introduced me to several of the PhDs there. This is a think tank, a secret think tank inside of Douglas. They have all of the information. I can't believe this, but after I'm in there for a while, in the files, I find 3 of my packages I had given to Douglas 8 years earlier.
That's an amazing
Wow.
story.
Okay, it's amazing, truthfully. And what took place there was truthfully uncanny, because yes, they knew about wanting to go to the moon, but we put together programs that went all the way out into the galaxy, not just this galaxy, which were really the mission that was 4 stages of Apollo. Now, you never heard anything about any of these other 3, never been published, okay? I'm going to tell you what they were. Yes, we had one contract to do whatever's necessary, build an Apollo vehicle or whatever, and get to the moon. We got a contract separately for the S4B stage, the control stage of Apollo, okay? That came 7 years after what we had been doing inside, and 4 years before NASA even existed. 4 years before the paperclip people got organized from Germany. So here we are, second phase of Apollo, to design and build a 500-man naval base and naval bases and operational centers. So we now have the design for study, the design for actually operating as a military organization in the solar system. So we were to go to every planet and or their moon and build these facilities.
Was this successful?
We didn't do it, okay? Second phase, we were to go to the 12 closest stars and do the same thing on those planets. We found out then that Alpha Centauri, being the closest star, had 2 suns. The radiation factor was going to be fantastic, so we stopped that part, and we were then to go the 11 closest stars and do the same thing, plus another thing. We were to set up commerce, not just the naval missions, but commerce. All right? 4th phase, go all the way out in the galaxy, set up commerce with other extraterrestrials, and some cases use the Navy space operation, which is the real Apollo program. You only did the first stage, because when you got to the moon, the reptilians were all around it, and you've seen some of the photographs, okay? All around it. And what you may not have seen in that illustration, it showed these great big vehicles, which one's in my book, Selected by Extraterrestrial, all the way around that part. The Draco guys in uniform are standing underneath there, underneath every one of those vehicles with their hands on their hips and they're giving you the finger. Wow. Okay, I've talked more than I should have talked, but that's essentially what I've been doing.
And now, what is your main goal in bringing forth all this information with avenues such as the Secret Space Program book?
Okay, what I want, okay, and actually Bob Wood, Michael Solis, all these fellows all want this, but I want this information to get out to the public. Now, I'm going to say something here, and no, I'm not. Can't say that. All right. I can say to you, I am still involved, okay, with the Navy. They have space.
But you are allowed to say these things here.
But I've been allowed to write this book. I've been allowed to talk about this subject, and I'm going to say everything I can say that I'm allowed to, okay? So my reason for being here is to get enough people to understand what's really happened and get involved in this. Not just read a book, like read my book. Get involved with all of these technical groups. MUFON is the top organization on the planet to try to divulge this. It's the best vehicle, but there's a lot of other ways we can talk about this, get it onto program, get people to know what's really happened, because you have more of a problem than you think you do. There's very serious problems with, there's many different species of extraterrestrial who are here. All of them have the ability to make them so you can't see them. All of them. Draco people, the ones you see that look like us, that's not what they are. They're 9 feet. They have the ability to control our mind and make them look like humans. Okay? They're all over the planet. We need to fix this. We need to fix what they're doing. We need people, we need everybody to understand what's going on so that we can fix this situation, get these people out. We do have friends. We got Northern people, we got blue people, we got quite a number of other species who are good guys. So they're helping us. We need to work with them as much as possible and try to stop this control. I'm going to say one other thing and then I'll get off this soapbox, all right?
Keep going.
This is very hard for most people to accept. And I'm going to say it anyway. Bob will actually say, don't listen to Bill. All right. The U.S. Navy spies, operative, told us that essentially we were only using 2.3% of our brain. We have learned more recently that the Nordic good guys are using 98%. We have been controlled for roughly 6,000 years mentally by Draco reptilians. Go back to the Secretary of the Navy, Forrestal, who was tapped on the shoulder by the Nordics, and we've heard what he said to do, okay? The Draco reptilians controlling much of the governments of every country on the planet don't want that out. So, what happened to the Secretary of the Navy?
Very unfortunate.
He gets pushed out of a 12-story building.
Mhm.
We lose him. What happened to Kennedy? They take him out because he was going to divulge this.
Mhm.
Wow. How many other people who have talked too much in the past are not here anymore? And I don't want to get into it, but you need to understand missing people on your planet. Okay, I'm going to stop.
Well, absolutely riveting information. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing all that with us.
Okay, it's my
Thank you.
pleasure.
Absolutely.
It's really my pleasure. I
Thank
want
you.
it out.
So,
Thank you, thank you.
thank you.